Time for the third and final part of our cheating in F1 mini-series. If you've missed the first 2 episodes, where have you been? Go check them out. Seriously, I'll wait for you. I'll be right here. Let me know when you're back.
"13.29 minutes later."
Back? Good? Cool. Let's get into this episode. It's 2005 and the BAR team has come off the back of its best ever season in Formula 1. The second best team in 2004, Jenson Button had his breakout year as the team was rejuvenated under the management of ProDrive's David Richards. But having poured so much of its attention into 2004, BAR struggled for pace at the start of the new season with its new 007 chassis. The team finally snared points at the San Marino Grand Prix, with Button taking 3rd and teammate Takuma Sato finishing 5th. But after the FIA's routine scrutineering checks, Button was disqualified after his car was found to be 5 kilos underweight. What the stewards had found was a secret secondary fuel compartment within the car, and as all cars at the time needed to be weighed with no fuel on board, also drained that, which, surprise surprise, made the car fall under the minimum weight requirements. BAR contested it was just a backup tank containing the minimum amount of fuel necessary to run the car. A likely story, right? Well, the stewards accepted that, and Button kept his podium finish, at least initially. The FIA contested BAR's antics and sent them to the dreaded International Court of Appeal, who agreed, stating that there was no way that the car could meet the 600 kilo minimum weight unless it was using fuel as a ballast within the secret compartment. Having investigated BAR's fuel consumption data too, it could not be determined if the car was of the correct weight throughout the entirety of the race. For failing to seek clarification on the rules, BAR was handed a 2-race ban from Formula 1, missing both the Spanish and Monaco Grand Prix. Regardless, the fiasco did not deter Honda from completing its buyout of the team in late 2005, having already purchased a 45% stake at the year prior, but that did end ProDrive's management contract 2 years early. Now let's throw it way back to the 1950s, and Harry Schell had been something of a bit part player on the F1 grid, but after joining the Works BRM team for 1958, the American driver had his best season in the championship, proving a consistent points scorer at the team. After scoring 5 points in 1959, Schell switched to a Cooper T51 for the final race of the year at Sebring, his home event. In qualifying, Schell initially set a time of 3 minutes 11.2, good enough for 11th. But during the tail end of the session, and pretty much unnoticed by almost everyone, Schell set a 3:05.2 that got him onto the front row. Protest ensued from nearly every other team, especially from Ferrari, whose man Tony Brooks was nudged off the front row by Schell. Apparently, the shouting match raged even as the Star Spangled Banner was being sung, but when it was through, Schell started the race from 3rd place. What had really happened with Schell didn't come out until after the race, and it's actually pretty sneaky. At Sebring, just beyond the MG Bridge and before the S's, was a sharp right turn that apparently led to nowhere, but Schell found that it connected with the end of the warehouse straight, bypassing the entire straight and the warehouse hairpin. He had secretly cut across and come back on the course during a lull in the traffic and cut 6 seconds off his time. It didn't help him in the race, however, as karma struck when Schell's clutch expired on the 6th lap. Regardless, it made today's track limits complaints look, well, rather minimal.
Fernando is faster than you. Can you confirm you understood that message?
Rob Smedley's radio calls to Felipe Baby during his time as the Brazilian's race engineer at Ferrari was somewhat famous, but his veiled instruction to let Alonso through at the 2010 German Grand Prix was probably the most infamous of the lot. Team orders had been banned in F1 since Ferrari ordered Rubens Barrichello to slow down at the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix to let Michael Schumacher past, giving us quite possibly the most awkward podium ceremony of all time. Fans were furious, and feeling that such actions would bring F1 into disrepute, the FIA put a lid on team orders. Teams then had to conceal any tactical orders with cryptic messages, usually disguised as a phrase that could apply to a car setting. Multi-21 anyone? But when Smedley asked Massa to concede the place at Hockenheim to Alonso in 2010, the can of worms was once again opened. Having been jumped by Massa at the start of the German Grand Prix and a couple of failed overtaking attempts, title contender Alonso dropped back from the Brazilian. But with Massa running behind him in the driver's standings and with both the championships so competitive, it was crucial that Alonso took home maximum points for Ferrari. Ferrari was fined $100,000 for breaching sporting regulations and was perhaps lucky to get away without any damage to the championship aspirations, as they were allowed to keep the positions and the points. The FIA concluded after the season that the ban on overt team orders wasn't working. It was impossible to police and therefore re-allowed them in 2011. Which story have you enjoyed most from this mini-series? Did we miss any stories out? Let us know in the comments and we might just feature some of the best suggestions in a future episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.